So, Jeff, I want to ask you specifically, when you're going and doing a home inspection, is your ultimate goal to go in there and just tell everybody everything that's wrong with their house and tear it apart? Hey everybody, thanks for checking out another episode of the Aaron Advantage podcast. Today is a special episode because for the first time ever, we have a panel of home inspectors answering your questions about how to get ready for a home inspection. Good morning, gentlemen. How are we doing today?
Great. Doing good. How are you?
Oh, so far so good. I'm actually here having a conversation about having inspections as opposed to getting an inspection done right now. So that's always a big win in my book.
Always.
So obviously today you guys are all here representing different companies, doing different inspections and things of that nature. So I wanted to have a good conversation from people who are in the industry of home inspections themselves, just to kind of let people know what to expect, what not to expect, and the different things that you guys are doing. But one of the first things I want to talk about is, you're a relatively young industry in the real estate business. How long have home inspections kind of been a thing, and how long have you guys each been in the business doing home inspections? And we'll go ahead and start off with Stephen here this morning.
As far as I know, people started doing them roughly about 30 years ago. This kind of started with the American Society of Home Inspectors, known as ASHI, and I myself started back in 2015.
Very nice. How about you, Jeff?
Okay. Excuse me. Pillar to Post has been around for 26 years. This particular office has been around for 2 years. I've been around construction for probably 14 years.
Very nice. And Brandon?
Started in October of 2010.
Very nice. So you've been doing it, all of you guys have been around construction and the inspection process kind of for a long time. So, with an industry that's only about 30 years old, how have things changed as far as the standards of what you're looking for? Because a lot of people think, oh, hey, I got this home inspector, his job's to come in and do all of this inspection on like building codes and all of these things. And that's just not the case. So, Brandon, why don't you tell us a little bit about your thoughts on kind of what that looks like as far as how the industry has changed since 2010?
So when I started in 2010, there were still guys using paper reports, and then they were taking digital photos and then uploading the digital photos to a jump drive and then giving people a jump drive. I think I did 2 inspections like that before I realized that's going to take way, way too long, and we can do this a whole lot better with like a digital report.
Right.
And very quickly that gained traction, and that's pretty much made it to what we see today with reports.
Very cool. And then as far as like standards go, I'm assuming like in real estate, whenever I first got started, we had a 5-page purchase agreement, and we were doing them all on paper as well with like the carbon copies and duplicates. And now it's an 8-page document because, as things evolve, as people sue other people and do all these things, it changes the way that we have to operate. How have you noticed, Jeff, additional things that you're supposed to be looking for while you're in homes, or different things that you're supposed to kind of put in those reports?
Well, I mean, as I said, we're kind of an infant office in the area, but things have changed over time. Probably the most important thing to remember as far as getting a home inspection is we are doing a visual inspection. We are not tearing anything apart to see how it's constructed, only to have somebody else have to come in and reconstruct it. So that's one of those things that's been there for a long time, and that's been through time. That's just what we do.
Yeah, that's one of those things I think people watch Homes on HGTV where he's coming in with the claw of his hammer and tearing out drywall to see what's going on behind the wall, and it's like, no, they're definitely not doing that. They're not hopping in your house and tearing anything apart to look at what's going on the inside. So.
And then he's doing a $10,000 repair after that.
Exactly. Yeah. So how about you, Stephen? I know that you've been around here for a while. You've seen some changes in the way that you do reports, and technology have impacted the things that you're doing. So how's that kind of influenced your business and your inspections?
Well, we've seen is a rapid change in the use of technology, actually. So the SOPs haven't changed much, where we're still doing a visual inspection, but we're able to leverage technology to provide a more thorough inspection. Use of drones, long-range cameras, and even the increase that the clients are calling in and asking for many other services on top of home inspections in the form of ancillary services. So it wasn't just an inspection and a termite report. Now you have people asking for mold testing, lead-based paint testing, and all sorts of other ancillary services, sewer scoping. There's all sorts of different ones people are starting to ask for us to provide, which we weren't seeing I would even say just 3 or 4 years ago, they they weren't asking for it as much.
Yeah, and I can definitely say that that's been the case. Whenever I first got started in the industry, it was whole house and termite. That's all there was. And even radon has become a much more prevalent service that people are asking for now, which, I knew nothing about whenever I first got started in this industry. And being in an area with a whole bunch of old mines and things, that's probably stuff that we should have been told about and got a lot more testing done in the past. So definitely the technology changes I can see have impacted that process a whole lot.
When I first started doing home inspections, you needed 3 tools. You needed a flashlight, you needed an outlet tester, and a screwdriver. Pretty much that and a ladder, you could go do a full inspection pretty easy. And yeah, now the truck definitely has a lot more tools in it.
Absolutely. So let's get into it. Obviously, when you guys are doing home inspections, your job is to go through and create this report to give information to the client. And I say the client specifically because obviously there's going to be a home seller who may hire you before they put their home on the market, or a home buyer who wants to know that what they're purchasing is going to be something that they can take care of. I think a lot of people, especially over the last couple of years, because of how fast the market was moving and all these other things, kind of forgot about why they needed a home inspection, and they just kind of waived that in a lot of different cases. And now we're seeing reports that are coming back, and there's a lot of buyer's agents and seller's agents that don't have a lot of experience or knowledge of what that report really is. So Jeff, I want to ask you specifically, when you're going and doing a home inspection, is your ultimate goal to go in there and just tell everybody everything that's wrong with their house and tear it apart? Or are you trying to provide some educational information so that they know what they're looking at to try to make sure the proper things are being taken care of?
What we're trying to do is we're trying to ensure a confident purchase by the buyer. If it's on the seller side and they're doing a pre-list inspection, giving them the information of the condition of the house so they can choose to correct things as before they put it on the market, and they can price it better based upon those things. So ask me the question again, because I have absolutely forgotten what the heck.
No worries. So my question was, you're not going in there just to say, hey, these are all problems. You're going to provide an educational report to let people know, hey, this is the breakdown of these are maintenance items, these are safety items, these are the big ticket items that need to be taken care of.
Overall, there's no such thing as a perfect house out there. There just is not. An inspection report is not meant to look inherently, it looks inherently negative. It's not meant to be negative. It's not meant to say it's a bad house.
Right.
It's just these are the things that you'll want to focus on because they're either degrading or they're a safety issue or they have degraded and you need to take care of them before they become a bigger issue.
Right.
And that's what we're trying to convey in our reports.
Absolutely. Steven, same question for you. Obviously, whenever you're going to do a home report, I've seen all of your reports, and I know you're very thorough guys. Your goal is not to say, hey, this is a problem that needs to be addressed right away, or hey, this house is falling apart. What is your thought process when you're going through and the way that you communicate that information with your clients?
We want to be neutral but thorough, so that we're helping them to give proper levity to what it is that we're seeing. So the idea isn't to scare the person because, like he said, a lot of times at a particular price range, if I do an inspection on a particular property and they don't buy it because of the things that come up, if it's a $100,000 property and I do another $100,000 property, I'm going to come up with just as many items. They're just going to be different. Yeah. So we're trying to put a lot of emphasis on educating them how to address what comes up during the inspection. If it's the roof, if it's not the roof, it's the crawl space. If it's not the crawl space, it's the HVAC system. So we want to spend time educating the clients on what to expect and then how to address it while working through with their real estate agent.
Perfect. And whenever you're breaking down those things, Brandon, especially on your reports, you have differing levels of what is reported. Obviously, you have certain things that are going to be like, hey, this is stuff you need to monitor because this is normal maintenance on the house versus, hey, these are problems that need to be addressed right away. There's a difference in what the Indiana purchase agreement defines as a defect versus what you guys have to point out in your reports. And I think a lot of people fail to understand that difference. So when you're creating these reports, making sure that people understand that difference, how do you specify what is the most important stuff?
So first off, I don't like the three colors, the maintenance, the defect, and then like your safety items. I really think whenever we go through a report, I just think we should call out what it is. If it's meant to work, it works. If it's not meant to work, if it is what it is. But unfortunately, we can't do that. We have to have your safety items, your structure items, your maintenance items all kind of categorized. And essentially, that's kind of what we look at. Anything that would hurt the structural integrity of the house or that would cause harm to the patrons living in the house are the things that are going to be like in your red safety style category. The rest of the stuff kind of falls between just like a standard defect and then your maintenance item. Maintenance items being things that typically have to be redone, ever so often, yeah. And then the other things being like, just not working as intended as being incorrect.
Yeah. Now, here's the one that I hear from all of the real estate agents all the time. Doesn't matter who the inspector is. Everybody just thinks, oh, man, all these guys are just nitpicky out here trying to go ahead and tear this house apart and give us all the worst possible information. You guys have a set of standards of things that you have to report for your own protection and your own liability. And I think that it's one of those things that people need to understand, that you're not there to cause a problem. You're there to educate and inform people. So, Jeff, I know that you, I've heard you speak many times. You tell everybody that your job is specifically to report on what you see and just to make sure that everybody is informed on that, correct?
That is correct.
Yeah. So when you're informing people, how do you handle whenever, let's say that you're there representing the buyer, how do you handle it when the seller calls and says, man, why are you just tearing my house apart?
I don't get that call very often because I think that we try to keep things in context. We don't make mountains out of molehills. We don't blow things out of proportion. I don't get paid by the word. I get paid for the information.
Right.
So I'm not getting dramatic in my reports and putting, just catastrophe words in there and things of that nature. And, like Brandon said, it is what it is. I spell it out and put in the report what it is. My clients, they make the call on whether they want to correct it,
right.
Have it corrected or not. And, people have the information to make educated decisions. And quite honestly, there are things that we have to put in reports that people are like, I like the way it is. I like the way it looks better than what you say is safer, and they'll leave it that way. And that's fine. They have the option to do that.
Yeah, and I think that's the most important thing that people don't even take into consideration is you guys are not putting emotion in your reports. You're not out there saying, hey, you are causing a problem. You are the one who did this wrong. You're actually there specifically just to say, it is what it is. This is what it should be. This is what it is. Do with that what you will. Mm-hmm. So, Stephen, it looks like you had something to say.
I did get 2 recent phone calls like this just in the past week. And the example I'll use is there was a metal roof, and the penetrations were going through the metal roof. And all they did was just silicone around the penetrations. So we called it out for missing the flashings.
Yeah.
Well, the roofer that installed the roof called up and gave us the riot act and called us every color under the sun, and just kept my cool. I let him vent and just said, thank you for letting us know. We'll send a qualified roofer out to verify whether we made the right call or not, and just kind of left it at that.
Yep.
After doing this for so long, you just kind of don't let it bother you. Don't let their bad day become your bad day. And the other example was a gutter on a second story I called out that was missing on the front side of the roof, and it was overflowing onto the flat roof below. And they were questioning why I recommended a gutter for the upper side. And I simply said, there is a standard. Contact a roofer for that standard. I recommended it because the water was overflowing and damaging the roof below, evidenced by the water line and holes in the roof.
Yeah.
I said, so let me play my role as the general physician and get you off to the qualified contractor. And there's no need to get upset. They'll either affirm or not affirm what we said.
That is the absolute perfect segue into the next thing I was going to say, which is I often tell my clients that your job is a generalist. It's like if you're going to your family doctor, you're going to talk to them about your general overall health. And if they find something that they're like, this doesn't look quite right, they don't say immediately, you have cancer, you need to go get this done and do all this stuff. They refer you to a specialist. And that's one of those things that I think a lot of people forget about whenever they have the home inspection. It's your job to go in and say, hey, it doesn't look right. Find the appropriate person to come in and evaluate that. That being said, that gets me into another thing, where a lot of times we take your reports, we send them over to contractors, and we have to get them the information on what we are trying to get fixed. And, contractors a lot of times are like, well, how am I supposed to fix it? How do you handle those kind of situations, Brandon?
Those are fun calls because it's like, you should know how to fix that. And I don't know, contractors are always fun because when they go look at something, I've never met a contractor that says, hey, the guy that did it before me did it right and it looks awesome.
Me either. Not even once.
So it is kind of, but they shouldn't be calling us and asking us how it needs to be fixed or what we're going to approve. They should know what's right. They should convey that to the buyer or the seller of the house, what needs to happen to make it right, and then it needs to be made right.
Yeah. Which brings me to the next thing, callbacks, re-inspections. A lot of people don't take into consideration that is something that they can have done. And, I recommend to a lot of my clients that, hey, you have a receipt from somebody that says, oh, I did the work, but you don't have proof that anything was done. And if you can't go into the house to see the specific things that are being taken care of and verify with your own eyes that, yeah, that is actually okay, you should probably have a callback and have that re-inspected to have that taken care of. So, Jeff, when you're going back and you're doing those re-inspections, what does that process look like as far as going back in and reevaluating any repairs that may have been requested?
Well, yeah, it's basically taking the information that was originally in the report, remembering, because there's been a lag time,
right?
What the condition was before and whether that condition's still there or not, and does the change that they made actually fit within the valid changes for making it correct?
Right.
Because you can make a change, it can still be wrong.
Right.
And so just checking those kind of things and checking them off the list. And so in our reports, we do an update in that particular section, put the date, update, this happened, it's satisfactory, something that.
Yeah, speaking of it can be wrong, how many times do you guys go back and reevaluate and you see, oh, something may have been done, but yeah, it's still not quite right?
Yeah, that happens. So there's differing quality in contractors,
right.
And you can tell the home engineers that are doing the work, and it's pretty apparent. As a matter of fact, you can almost identify engineers that have lived in the house, that have done their own thing, and it probably works from an engineering standpoint, but it does not from the standards of construction that we're supposed to be using.
Right. No, that totally makes sense. So, Stephen, I hear this complaint a lot of times from clients, unfortunately, and they're like, I already paid him for the inspection. Why do I got to pay him to go back and re-inspect it? Obviously, you guys are taking time to go back and reevaluate and utilizing your tools and services, but why is there a charge for a re-inspect?
So this goes so for the re-inspections itself, it's just extra time. You paid for the block of time that the person was there for the original inspection, and everyone's working hard. Everyone can agree that doing these inspections, trying to knock out a 3,000 square foot property in 2 to 3 hours, you're sweating by the end of this.
Right.
So this is not an easy profession to do. But that being said, that time was allotted for the amount of dollars that you were there. So just like a return trip fee if something wasn't accessible, or a re-inspection to check that something was done right, or we go out to do a standalone, mold test, you have to pay for the time that the person's there for. And then some people do, some people don't. We have a flat rate fee because it's just too many variables for doing like outbuildings. Which when a lot of people base their pricing based on the square footage of the house, and you ask us to do something extra, they're like, why is there extra to charge for the detached building? Well, it's got the same components as the house, but it wasn't included in the square footage.
Right.
So our company's just kind of taking a flat rate approach, unless they let us know it's, an actual second house or something like that.
Yeah, and you said something there that I think is really important that I want to unpack a little bit more. Charging to go back because something's inaccessible. And so, with my team and my clients, our mission is to really make sure that we educate the consumer on every process of buying or selling a home so they really know what to expect. And I find that there's a lot of people that don't know what to expect as far as the actual physical inspection and what's going to happen on the day that that's going to go on. So, I do a pretty good job of making sure I have those conversations, but what should a buyer expect as far as what you're going to do? Stephen just mentioned it's kind of a 3-hour inspection for these big homes. I've had people go, I thought they were going to be in and out in 30 minutes. Brandon, how do you think we can best prep our buyers on what to expect on what you do and what they're going to see in the report?
It's always fun when you go to a house and the seller's like, okay, we'll be gone for like 5 minutes. You're going to be done, right? And like, no, we're going to be here probably 3 hours, hopefully within that time. And then their eyes just get huge. When we go and we typically send out emails and stuff like that before to kind of help circumvent this. But obviously we need accessibility to your attic space, your crawl space, HVACs. We need to be able to get into those. Water heater, we need access to that. Electrical panels, a lot of times that thing's just tucked away in a closet. Nobody really thinks about it. And there's, 15 boxes in front of it, that sort of thing. And then obviously you get yeah, sure, there's clothes in the closet. Why don't you just move all the clothes and then go up and get in the attic and then climb back down? Well, I mean, if it's a few things, I can understand that. But if I'm moving an entire wardrobe, I feel like I'm invading someone's
privacy
space just a little more than typical. And then kind of the same thing when you're out in the garage and there's a car in the way, you can't lower the stairs to get up in the attic, that kind of thing. It makes it to where we can't get to all the areas that we need to be able to get to.
Yeah, so prepping the seller to let them know, hey, these are the things that you need to have accessible, and telling them, hey, we're going to be in there and doing these things is something that people should definitely do. Steven, I know that you and I have had this conversation many times on how you've had varying experiences of the prep work that's gone into letting clients know what to expect. What do you think is the best way to try to get someone ready? Obviously, you guys do a great job with those emails, but what can agents do to better ensure that the client is ready for you to be in their house?
I think all of us are leveraging the technology. Like he just said, he sends out the emails with it. In ours, we have an attached PDF that they can simply print and give to their client that says, like, it's written in neutral language, so it's not scary. Like, hey, we just want to get to your attic, your crawl space, your service panel, your water heater, those major components. And like he said, like, we don't like touching people's stuff at all. Literally, I just took care of a guy because he was mad because the blind in the garage broke. They get brittle over time, and like one of the pieces broke when I had opened it to open and close the window in there.
Right.
I didn't argue with them. Just got them. Blinds are cheap. Went and got them a blind. But simply, we're coming. Prep the home for the home inspection, and these things can be avoided. And it creates less friction and makes it smoother for everybody involved.
Right.
So simply following our email templates that go out on how to prepare the homes for the home inspection.
Yeah. And then Jeff, as far as preparing buyers, I've had a lot of buyers who think that you walk out of the house and they're going to have all the information as soon as you're gone. How's that process work?
Well, the other day I had 10 minutes before my buyer called and said, so what have you found? And I'm like, I just barely got the door open.
Right.
So, preparing the buyer is, and it really goes to the first-time home buyer,
right,
more than anybody else's. And I'm kind of going to go back to something I said earlier, is kind of prepping them to say, hey, there's going to be some things in here that your dream house that you think is perfect isn't perfect, but it doesn't mean it's a bad house.
Right.
And so just letting them know that the information, again, it's going to look negative, but it's not intended to be negative and to say it's a bad house. It's just intended to inform you so you know what's coming down the pike or things that you may ask to have corrected before you get there. So we had the conversation like that just to kind of to set the stage, because especially for first-time home buyers, they're really excited about getting that first piece of property, and everything looks great from the street.
Right.
Everything looks great from the street. These flips look fantastic from the street. You get to the crawl space in the attic, it kind of starts to tell a different story.
Exactly. Now, Brandon, I'm gonna pick on you a little bit because whenever I first got started in this industry, we've been doing this a long time now. And I remember whenever I was first in, I wanted to go to every single home inspection, and I wanted to be there the entire time. And I followed you around several home inspections over the years. I know that all three of you guys welcome having the buyer come to the home inspection, but do you really want everybody there? Not just the buyer, but dad's coming along with them, and Uncle Ted, who may or may not have built a home in the last 50 years, and all of these things that are going on. Obviously, you want to make sure the person's informed, but you also don't want to be distracted the whole time, right?
Yeah, dads are my favorite. I love it when they come with their knowledge. Well, so what you run into there is usually the biggest problem is they don't understand what a home inspection is, or if you get contractor Dan or whoever the uncle is, they think about what the code is now. And not what the code was in 1972 whenever the house was built. So obviously there's a big fluctuation there. So whenever they see stuff that you're maybe not calling out that they feel should be called out, that's typically why.
Yeah.
The things like that kind of get brought to light. And then obviously it leads to friction between you, the other guy who's there, and then the person trying to purchase the home.
So what would you recommend for a buyer who wants to come in and be a part of the inspection process? Is it best for them to maybe show up towards the end of it and kind of get the overview? Is it best to be there for the whole thing? What would be the best recommendation that I could make to my clients for any of you guys as far as that goes?
So we encourage to be at the inspection. If they're going to come early, we typically let them know, like, look, I'm going to be running around like a chicken with my head cut off for at least the first 2 hours. Otherwise, because I'm not going to know anything, like Jeff said, 15 minutes going into the home inspection and somebody shows up and wants to know if there's any structural things found yet. And it's like, I got the door unlocked and all the lights on, so... you found all the structural stuff. Yes. So it is kind of nice to, have a little bit of time to be able to get the house opened, kind of like realtors, whenever they go set a house up for a showing, you're going to go in, you're going to get everything turned on, you're going to get everything like accessible, and then we can get started doing our processes. Then obviously they're not going to be able to get on the roof with us, and that sort of thing. So there's a few of those things that we can definitely do before their arrival.
Perfect. Sounds good. Jeff, how about you?
Yeah. One kind of quick thing. I think all of us, especially me for sure, I have a process that I go through. And when the process is interrupted, it's not that I have a problem with communicating with somebody,
right,
and I'm trying to hide anything. I'm trying not to miss anything. And when there's a lot of interjection and things like that, I might miss something, and I'm trying to give you a quality report. I'm trying to give you quality information. So I'm a talkative guy. I know a little about a lot of things. And if you get me going, I'll be talking.
Right.
And I don't want to be talking. I want to be getting you what you're buying or what you're paying for.
Yeah, absolutely. And then this is a question that always comes to mind, and this is one of the things that I try to train a lot of new agents on whenever we have new people coming into FC Tucker is a lot of people just take the report at face value and they're scared to call you guys and ask questions. How does the experience as an inspector go when somebody calls and says, hey, I just really can't tell what's going on in this photo. Can you give me a little bit more information so I can make sure I'm advising my client the best way? What would you say to that, Stephen?
We encourage them and we give them our phone numbers. So if they have questions, a lot of our, I think he does as well, a lot of our prior clients call us and have us do other things even after they move in.
Right.
So we're out doing maintenance inspections for some folks and stuff like that. So we actually try to build a rapport with a lot of our clients because they're, just like we're downstream of agents on the referral side, they're also downstream of us after telling their friends and family about us. So we're open to hearing back from them.
Yeah, and that you just said something that I think is really important to help people understand is when you do the home inspection and you have this information in this report, that it's not just necessarily a one and done thing. You guys are open to having those ongoing relationships and those maintenance inspections that people think the only time I'm going to have my home inspected is when I'm putting it on the market or when I'm going to buy a new one. And that's just not the case, right?
Yeah, and technology plays again. We've probably been out to make phone calls for someone like a roof. They had a leak in their roof, and it wasn't necessarily accessible. We used infrared cameras to try to locate where the water's coming in from. They'll call me up, like, call me when it's raining. I'll come out there that day, and I'll bring my infrared camera. We'll try to isolate that area if I can't get to it in the attic. Because sometimes water leaks and water issues can be in one place, but they're showing up in another, right, and stuff like that. So they know we have this technology. They have some work done. Can you come out and scope my line? I had it cleared. The plumber didn't have a camera, so he just had an auger. Can you come out and just double check what he did was good?
Yeah,
and
fantastic.
that kind of stuff.
Yeah, All right. I'm going to ask each of you guys this question individually. This is the last one that I have for you guys today. And it is, if you had the most important piece of advice you could either give to a client or to anyone who's referring you business, what is the most important thing that you should have that person share with the person that's coming to you for your services?
I would say check out our YouTube channel to see all the services that we offer so you can see what we're doing in real time. Because a lot of people just don't always understand how the different things would benefit them. Yeah. We get some folks that call in and they order everything just because that's what they want. They have the money to do that. And then you have some that are budget conscious. So we might recommend just a inspection and a sewer scope because it was built in 1920. Yeah. You know, or something like that, and be like, make sure you get a termite or consider if it's within your budget or something. I'll work with them on that.
Perfect. Jeff, how about you? Most important thing that people should understand when they're calling for inspection services?
I think, again, that no house is perfect. I had somebody challenge me one time on that. A young guy said, yeah, that's not true. I'm like, oh, yeah, tell me about it. And he goes, the White House. I'm like, well, tell me about the White House. And he said, well, they have a whole staff of people working on it. I'm like, oh, well, why would they pay this whole staff of people to work on the White House if it's perfect?
Right.
And he's like, oh, okay, you got a point. So, no house is perfect. But I agree with Stephen. A lot of people that I talk to, and I've had investors that have never seen the house, that they're buying a property that's local, and they want to get a mold inspection. I'm like, and they want to pay for it up front. I'm like, look, I'm not here to take more money than what it's going to cost. Let's hold off on the mold inspection. If I see evidence of something, I will let you know. We can go ahead and do it then.
Right.
But there's no sense in paying for it up front when I might not find anything related to what looks like mold. So let's hold off on that. I'll send you some pictures, some evidence, and if you want me to fire up that and get that mold inspection done, I could do that. We'll make that call at the time that I see something.
Perfect. And Brandon?
I would say the basic home inspection with what we have available nowadays is kind of not the best idea, even though people think they are totally covered just getting the basic inspection. Time and time again, you'll get callbacks down the road where somebody's plumbing backed up and they've got major issues, and then you go out there aftermath trying to cover your basis and find out that there's a massive root wad out in the yard. And guess what? We would have been able to catch that the day they were there had they decided to do the other services in order to kind of figure that out up front. And that $7,000 that person had to eat would have been taken care of by the seller before that ever happened to begin with. That and people price shopping for home inspections. The cheaper an inspection is typically there's a reason for it. And time again, you'll get people that say, hey, this person's going to do it $100 cheaper than you. Are you going to match that? The answer is always no, because I know that we are doing a whole lot more during that inspection than the other person. Yeah. They'll be done in 45 minutes and they'll have a 19-page report.
You nailed it. And that typically ends up costing you a lot more money down the road.
Exactly.
Jeff?
There's nobody that can inspect a house in an hour.
Right.
If they're telling you that it takes an hour, you're not getting your money's worth. I don't care how much you're paying. So, to me, it takes a good 2.5, 3 hours on the basic house to do a thorough job. And that's what we're there to do. We want to give you as much information as we can. I cannot do that in an hour. So if you want to call me and say, hey, I need an inspection in an hour, I'm going to need you to call somebody else, unfortunately. Thank you for thinking of me, but that's not something that we can do.
Yeah. The thing that I hear the three of you saying over and over again is the fact that you're more focused on making sure that you're taking care of the client the right way. You're educating them on what they're actually looking at, and you're making sure that you are open to communication so that if they need things in the future, that you will be able to be there and help them out. That's the way I've built my business. That's the way that I make sure that I instruct my team and everything else. And I think that's why you guys are successful in what you do and making sure that people are taken care of and educated. So that is all I've got for you guys today. If there's anything else that I missed, feel free to chime in real quick. Otherwise, I appreciate your time coming in, and I look forward to working with you all in the future.
I think we did a pretty good job.
Yeah.
Everybody but Brandon.
Yeah, I'd like to
precisely.
go back and clarify some stuff.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate you.